Welcome back. This is John Locke. We had a lot of equipment failure today, so forgive the low-tech how we're doing this. But anyway, today I'm answering a question from my friend Rene. And Rene, if you see this video, leave a comment down below. And if you don't see this video, don't leave a comment. But her question was, hey, I heard from someone else that Google likes HTML sitemaps. Is there an advantage to having an HTML sitemap on your website for SEO purposes? So my answer is going to be a two-part answer. The first part of it, I'm going to explain why I always put a footer link to an HTML sitemap page on the website. And the second part of it is I'm going to go into at least my theory about how Google assesses the quality of a website, what it looks for as far as EAT, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, and parts of the quality rater guidelines that you probably have not considered when it comes to actually building your website. So for the first part of it, I always put a footer link to an HTML sitemap and a privacy policy page, and there's a reason for that. First reason is, as far as the privacy policy, Google said a couple of years ago that they would be looking for that as a sign of quality. Now, as far as the HTML sitemap, I believe that was in the quality rater guidelines maybe about 4 years ago as a signifier of quality. But there's a second reason that you would want to have that on your site, and it's not primarily for SEO. It is primarily for user experience for the visitors that come to your website. Now, let's say that you are a person coming to a website for the first time, and you're looking for a specific page, but you don't see it in the main navigation and you don't see it in the footer navigation. You would go to a sitemap page to see a list of all the pages, or the most prominent pages, and all the articles or resources that are on that site. So in that sense, it's a useful way to find what you're looking for. The second reason has to do with Google crawling your website. Now, if you have hooked up a site to Google Search Console, which you're probably doing if you're doing SEO at all, you probably have already submitted an XML sitemap. Now, XML, at one point, at least when I was first learning web design, there was a turning point where people thought that sites were pretty much going to be like all XML, XHTML, and we were going to use that for semantics. For the semantic web, the web 3.0. But XML is basically, it's a markup language that Googlebot can crawl those pages very quickly and get the information it needs when it goes there. But it's basically just a list of the different pages that are on your site that is marked up in a way to where they dynamically change, meaning if you add pages to your site, then that sitemap is updated and Googlebot knows to go and crawl that page. Now, crawling, remember, is when Googlebot goes to your site, it extracts that page, it crawls it and renders it as it would in a regular browser. It takes that information back to what is called the index. Now, the index is a set of all the pages that can be ranked or that can appear in Google search rankings. So whenever somebody types in a query, a search into Google, it looks at all the pages that are within that index, within that set of all pages that it has encountered, and says which pages might satisfy this query. Then it ranks them based on its ranking algorithm. Okay, so the XML sitemap, that's normally what it does, and it normally hits them at a certain schedule. But in HTML sitemap, Google usually does follow the links on a page. So if you have a HTML sitemap, which are regular hyperlinks, it will also follow those and will also try and crawl those pages as well. So if you are updating pages quickly or on a regular basis, that is a way that it might index the changes from those pages a little bit quicker. But mostly it's there for user experience. Now, I want to talk about the second part of this question, and this has to do with how would Google assess the quality or the overall expertise of a site. Now, most people started talking about this EAT acronym maybe about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, but it has been in the quality rater guidelines for several years. And to refresh your memory, the search quality raters, they are independent contractors that Google hires to evaluate pages, web pages that appear in the search results. And they have all these different components of the page, and they assess them on a scale of lowest quality to highest quality, and they give them, different marks. Main content, secondary content, the expertise of the site, who's behind the site. Can you find who the information of the person behind the site? And so what happens is this feedback goes back to the Google engineers who are programming the ranking algorithm. Now, the end goal is for the ranking algorithm to pick the same things that a human being would pick. So based on how they take that feedback and how they reprogram the algorithm, they want Google to always rank the things that are the best as far as what a human being would objectively pick. So an example of that would be if you have two pages that have pretty much the same information, almost identical or whatever, same, goal, the same task completion, pretty much same content, but one has a very outdated design and one is formatted with good typography, easy to read, legible, good contrast, and has a good design that's pleasing to the eye, then most times people are going to pick that one because it just is easier to consume. It's easier to browse that page. So all other things being equal. So we have a theory about that, how Google would use user signals. So again, only about half the sites in the world have Google Analytics. So they are not using Google Analytics, and they've said many times on record that they don't use analytics in the ranking algorithm. But half the sites on the planet do not have Google Analytics anyway, so they need a secondary way to be able to evaluate if people are happy with a page, because remember, the search raters are grading it. One thing that I want to point out too that is in the quality rater guidelines is this site built with a high level of skill and expertise? So expertise is not just about, are the people writing for your website this, PhD or world-renowned author or an expert in their field? That's not necessarily it. One of the other things that is in there is the overall design of the site. And was this site put together with a high level of skill? Because that's usually an indicator of whether we can trust a site or not. If somebody is, if somebody's nephew that's just learning web design puts together your site, it's going to look a lot different than if a enterprise level company with a team of developers and designers is putting together a site. They're often going to look quite different. So that can be an indicator of expertise, because again, big brands invest in design. So, how is Google measuring user satisfaction when it comes to the overall design of the site or the satisfaction with the content on the page? One thing that I believe, a couple other people believe too, is the only way to get a big sample set accurately of all the websites in the world is to use something like the Chrome browser, which Google owns and operates. They also operate Android. So I don't know if they're using that, but Chrome seems like it is the most popular browser now. So it could very well be that. That would be a way to get full coverage of all websites and get actual user signals of whether people are happy with the page. Another thing that I believe happens too is for certain search queries, Google, kind of has a running commentary of, for times where user signals seemed to be positive, and in times where people completed a task like filling out a contact form or getting to some sort of thing where they're calling the company or requesting more information or spending a lot of time on the site or going to several different pages, whatever it is that they deem as a positive signal, in cases like that, what elements were on that page? Maybe a contact form is above the fold. Maybe there's a video present on the page. Maybe there's a featured image on that page. Maybe the content mentions certain phrases that are industry standard phrases around that subject. These can all be things that Google looks for particular queries because it has a record of those things. So it's able to pattern match at a big distance. Okay, so when it comes to an HTML sitemap, is it a net positive to have one on your site? Well, it's not really costing you anything to put one on your site, or a privacy policy or a terms and conditions page. And again, that's something that Google is looking for as something that big brands would do and not just a mom and pop shop or a very small business, but something that a larger brand that's trying to get larger still would probably do, would cover their bases with these sorts of things. But I think of it like this. Let's say that, and I'm sure that it is more complicated than this, and this might not even be the way that they do it. But bear with me for a second. Let's just pretend for a minute that Google is going to assign a quality score to each site that it encounters. And let's say that there's 15,000 quality points that it can give for things that might be present on a site that is indicative of high quality. And maybe it's looking for things like a contact page or contact information. It's looking for an about page, might be looking for terms and conditions, privacy policy, return policy, and a HTML sitemap. Now, let's say that a sitemap page, the presence of that might be 2 points, and a privacy policy might be 5 points, and an about page might be 20 points, and a contact page might be 25 points. And maybe there's other things like, indications of certain types of content on the site might be 100 points. Or, on certain key pages, there might be certain elements that need to be present. And those types of user signals and things would be even more points. So all those things add up into a quality score that Google can objectively use to say that sites that tend to have high quality tend to have these elements. And so an HTML sitemap and other pages like a privacy policy page are indicative of sites that have high quality. Now, it might not be a big thing. It might not be a heavy weight. But all these little things add up into an aggregate of things. Now, if you add an HTML sitemap to your site, is it going to make you rank higher if you make no other changes? You don't change the design, you don't build more links, you don't add more content? Probably not on its own. And I know that that's the easy answer of what people are looking for, but it's probably not weighted all that much. But it is an indicator of a site that is high quality because, again, it is something in the past that they've indicated through the quality rater guidelines, and communications through Google representatives that yes, that is something that at one point that they were looking at as an indicator of quality. So your question, Rene, is having an HTML sitemap on your website a advantageous thing for SEO? Yes. Is it going to rocket you from page 10 to page 1 without making any other changes? Probably not. But it is a thing that I continue to put on all of my websites, and it's something that I advise that you do as well because it's a low effort thing that is useful for visitors to that site. Probably helps Googlebot do its job a little bit easier. So why not? My name is John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design and SEO, and I'm here every single day making videos on SEO. If you have a question, leave it in the comments below. I want to say thanks to all the people who have subscribed recently and all the people who have come on in the last year. You know, we're almost at 100,000 views. We're not that far away. We're almost at 500 subscribers. We might even hit that early next month. So I want to say thanks. And to each and every one of you, I really do appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you. That's all for now. Until next time, peace.